The more recent of Guy Ritchie's films which seemed to be of interest to me was 2021's Wrath of Mann. I was under the impression that this film was closer to an attempt to mimic or resemble Michael Mann, and in a drought of Mann's films anyway. I don't overly anticipate viewing Ferrari, so... Ritchie's other latest features, those released since 2005's Revolver, say, have been either overtly comic-esque, highly mock-stylized attempts to remind us of his old work, and regularly he resembles the recent Matthew Vaughn Kingsman adjacent work more so than his own, supposedly. Rather, he's doing blockbusters which are indistinguishable from his work and seemingly supposedly could be anyone else's work. It is the sole recent feature from Ritchie since Revolver, as stated, which I was captivated enough by the surrounding residue of. I actually felt excited to view it. The Gentleman and Operation Fortune are not what I want, too animated and saturated and smug, expecting to be considered clever without the grounded realism or sheen of it, compared with the initial two classic features from Ritchie or their manic evocative editing schema either. Revolver was fascinating, if not potentially ineffective, as an engrossing act of subject-object relationship, art plus witness, symbiotic transcended elevation. The film potentially ascends one to a higher feeling of lucidity, particularly in the dead of the night, questions the experiences of lived reality in the aftermath of, although it may just fail just as well at that. King Arthur appeared blander than it really needed to be. The Covenant doesn't appear very interesting to myself. Aladdin, I don't even love the Disney original. That 90s Disney Renaissance, so-called, is very overrated for the most part, I could claim. So Wrath of Mann had Guy Ritchie witnessed the Transporter films with his boy Jason Statham, whom he had placed on the Hollywood maps, and maybe envied an opportunity to direct one. Considered part of the Transporter series via a cute cameo is Michael Mann's 2004 feature, a modern classic, probably video soon actually, Collateral. Guy Ritchie, itchy to direct his own Michael Mann-inspired feature, found Statham and together they delivered, as I see it, the most interesting work from either since Snatcher or Revolver, though Statham's recent turn in Meg 2 begs a reconsideration, of course. Now, it does compel me to say, however, Wrath of Man doesn't meet the majesty, technical finesse, or diaphanous photography of Mann's greatest features, Manhunter, Collateral, Miami Vice, Black Hat, plausibly. Although films influenced by Mann are tremendously improved then, if they hadn't otherwise. Even as a straightforward action thriller, Wrath of Man is substantially refined via an adherence to the smoother, slick, ethereal, edited frameworks of a Mann crime psychoanalysis voyage. The action is binding, surrounding one in the occurrence, yet Ritchie really treating it as cinematic, higher and archetypal, rather than as docu-realism. This is mostly true of the climactic gunfight sequence. An earlier shootout scene is highly auto-aimed and clean, overly sleek perhaps, although it grants this otherwise beautifully mundane depiction of a contemporary Los Angeles, a nation in and of itself, or so the players act as though, a spectre of the movie world, of Michael Mann's Hollywood having slipped into its dimension to... Oh, spoilers, go away, anyone who is pedantic about them, please. Enact vengeance upon those who attempted to play like they were Hollywood movie robbers, carry out dangerous high-reward heists only to make a wrong judgment and experience the wrath of the authentic, serious, and established man. Michael Mann, in this case, and one of Michael Mann's highly gifted and capable protagonists adapting to their scenarios. Heat, Mohicans, Manhunter, Black Hat, Miami Vice, Public Enemies, despite that latter film's innumerable issues, of course. Eager to enable this film's sensorial climaxes, a sequential display of tense action scenes and slower heating of eventual spectacular captivity as viewer, idealized violent competition. Flashbacks are employed, the film is rather reliant on, to permit any mystery for the plot, though it is to the synopsis' benefit, to be certain, cynical and uncreative it can be considered by some, too. Cops and Robbers is an artful sport, manicured and moulded by the filmmaker. Many would, some say hackily, describe this as Mann's narrative trademark, wholly attempted and mimicked in Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man. Indeed, a very fine and enjoyable picture, not particularly revelatory, but relieving, a straightforward, action-oriented romp number with a pretension of being high art, and so those manifestations, those noticeable efforts, represented by cinematographic decisions and editing ethos and insistent film direction, become highly engrossing in and of themselves when witnessing an otherwise dry or predictable plotline, especially if not manipulated via the flashbacks throughout. Wrath of Man was uplifting and made an evening memorable. It doesn't dazzle as an example of the magnificent, the best the medium has to offer, but if this is the average which an experienced mainstream film celebrity has to offer, then bring it on. I just wish his other films, or Michael Mann's own, were more like this or using this as a springboard for greater things. I want to see Michael Mann direct an Avatar 3 or an Akira-inspired film, or, well, whatever he likes, I'm not interested in seeing predictable biopics anymore. Maybe there'll be some rather impressive car racing sequences, I'm not sure. Maybe, but not overwhelmingly thrilled, to be frank here. Michael Mann, Guy Ritchie, I feel 16, but better. Memories of 16 with at least 10 years difference. Appreciating the art one was enthused about without the ego, only the identification of the craft, which makes it appealing, not the self-identification of esteem or power or accomplishment or respect, which some films or works of culture/art can inspire in some at one time in life. AOD endorses Wrath of Man, and hopefully it is not the last Guy Ritchie film which it will ever endorse, because for now, of those released, it will be.